Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 to Howl. Today we'll look at the prospects the Coyotes have all over the world, see who's doing good, is everyone developing well, is there any things we should be worried about, who's not performing up to task, and all that good stuff. I should have a little blurb here and there about each Coyote prospect. We'll start with the Western Hockey League, who I think is probably the best Coyotes prospect we have, not counting the actual Coyotes and Cooley and the Tucson Roadrunners and Gunther. It's Geekie. Every year, every junior year he gets better and better. Last year, he had 77 points in 66 games played. This year, he's got 37 points in 22 games played. So even if he plays 60 games, he'll get 100 points. Last year, he played 66 games and got those 77 points. Love everything about him. Unfortunately, he's victim to a very, very unfortunate Canadian Hockey League rule where at a certain age, if you're not above it, you can't play in the American Hockey League. I'm sure we would all love Geekie on the Tucson Roadrunners. However, he's not eligible. Next year, he will be, along with some of these other guys. So just one more year of tearing it up in juniors, and then we'll start to see him in the state of Arizona. Moving on, Kipke, a defenseman in the 5th round in the most recent draft. He's been turning heads, pretty good numbers for a defenseman and for a 5th round pick. 19 points in 26 games played. Then we go to Terrell Goldsmith, picked earlier than Kipke, but not performing as well as Kipke. Remember, Goldsmith is that bruiser, goon type defenseman, sort of like Josh Brown. He's just there to intimidate people, be physical, and sort of that prototypical Bill Armstrong type of guy you need in your lineup. Whether it's a rookie tournament or the American Hockey League, you need a bruiser on your team to intimidate the other team and show the other team you can't mess around with our star prospects. So yes, I agree. Maybe Goldsmith was taken a bit high, but you still need those types of players in your pipeline. Then we go to Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, where we got two studs here, two studs of defensemen, starting with Maverick Lamoureux, a first-round pick, 19 points in 19 games played. He was MVP for defenseman in the month of October, and he's currently 9th place in terms of defensemen in terms of points. And 7th place is Langlois. And in that October month, he was an honorable mention for that MVP award among defensemen. He's got 20 points in 20 games played. Really liked Langlois and Lamoureux in the most recent rookie tournament. So excited for these guys to come to Arizona at the end of the season. I'm really hoping, selfishly, their seasons in Quebec end early due to not making the playoffs or getting eliminated in the playoffs. Selfishly, I said. Just so that they can have some time in the American Hockey League. Maybe they show up for the Coyotes, for the last few games of the season. That's it for Canada. There's no Ontario Hockey League players. There was Anson Thornton, but he got moved to the Tucson Roadrunners due to losing Prosvetov on the waiver wire. So for the first time in a really long time, there's no one in the Ontario Hockey League. I remember we had guys like Strome, Domi, Hayden, Chikrin. Loved seeing them in the Ontario Hockey League, but unfortunately, that's it. Maybe that's by design, or maybe it's coincidence. For me personally, I'm starting to not, praise the OHL so much. There's been a couple wishy-washy high draft picks picked there recently. Shane Wright is a notable example there. Then we go to the United States Hockey League, where Julian Lutz, remember how hard I've been on Lutz. In the German Hockey Leagues, he's played 2 seasons in Germany since the Coyotes have drafted him, and it's always disappointing and very underwhelming. Even in the prospect tournaments, I really don't see him moving the needle. For a second-round pick, he should be having more of an impact, but he's got 19 points in 16 games played, playing in the minor college American leagues. So yeah, maybe he's an overager there. Maybe he's not playing up to his stature. Maybe he belongs more in the NCAA. But just the fact that he's in North America, the Coyotes could get easy eyes on him, and he's progressing well. I love that he's over a point per game and producing finally playing hockey because he wasn't doing that in the German league. And he was on the same team as Maximilian Zuber. And look at Zuber now. He's already on the Roadrunners, progressing faster than Lutz. Lutz's second round pick, Zuber, I believe, was very late in the draft. And then we got Zelinka, centerman, 7 points, 15 games played, 7th round pick. Muser, the goalie, is also in the United States Hockey League. I found out after I made this board and didn't want to redo the whole board. So Muser, we'll talk about our first goalie here, 6th round pick. He's got 4 wins, 2 losses, 2 overtime or shootout losses, a .902 save percentage, 282 goals against average. Our goalies are actually looking pretty good. We'll just jump to them now. Hurrable, who I think is a top Coyotes goalie prospect, 6-2-1, a .902 save percentage, a 283 for a first-year guy in the NCAA. That's pretty ridiculous. 2nd round pick. Everyone's really high on Hurrable, and just keep your eye on him. I think he's going to be a future star for the Coyotes. We'll go back up here for Lipkin. Remember, he's a 7th round pick, but he's turning a lot of heads around. And even Bill Armstrong tried to sign him this most recent summer, but he decided to stay for another year in college. He had 43 points in 39 games played last year, so he's a point per game NCAA player, even though he's a 7th round pick. And he's continuing his point per game pace. He's a centerman, so excited for Lipkin. He should be joining the Arizona Coyote organization after this season. Matika, Ludka, Castagna, and Morden, they're all first years in the NCAA, so not too worried about their numbers. I'm hearing some buzz around Matika. People think he's a pretty underrated Coyotes prospect, so keep an eye on him in the NCAA. Now, Duda is in red because we got a very unfortunate situation here. He's not injured, but he hasn't played yet this season due to a contract dispute. If you remember, in the summer, he tried to leave Russia and the KHL to go to the NCAA for the University of Maine. He was physically in the state of Maine in September. I don't know if he's still there now, but he's in dispute about whether he's eligible to play with the NCAA. And Craig Morgan today reported, he answered my question from the Discord, there's no updates. They're still negotiating, still trying to see if he's eligible and when he could play. It's just a very unfortunate situation. This guy hasn't played hockey in so long. He went through a very long off season, hasn't played in September, October, November. He's got to play hockey soon. And he's a 2nd round pick too. A lot of people were high on him for a defenseman, and he hasn't played hockey. So I'm sure Bill Armstrong's not happy about that. And they just got to find a way to get him to play hockey. And yeah, very unlucky and unfortunate for Artem Duda. Then we go to Russia, where we were just talking about. Our 2 big 1st round picks from the most recent draft, Daniel Boot and Simishev. Now, these numbers might look underwhelming to you, but actually, because these guys are so young and they're playing games in the KHL and playing consistently and dressing almost every game, that's a plus in and of itself. But also, these guys have been on a heater lately. But has 8 points in his last 10 games, and Simishev has 3 points in his last 5 games. They're both signed for another year in the KHL, so we won't see them next year. We'll see them at the end of next season. So a bit of a ways away, but they're progressing nicely. Hopefully they come into the Coyotes organization when we're a consistent playoff team and battling maybe for the 2nd round, conference final, somewhere around there, and they just come in the Coyotes lineup, already playing against huge competition in the KHL. That's a really good league. Don't downplay the KHL. I think it's one of the best leagues, probably top 3 in the world after the NHL and the American Hockey League. And then we got Lamoureux, who we got in a trade as like a throwaway player, maybe the Edmonton trade with Bukestad, or it could be another trade. I could be wrong there. But he's making the highlight reel a lot over Twitter. He's got 13 games and 34 games played. And then we go to another unfortunate situation with Fedotov, a 2nd round pick. He was picked in the same year that Josh Stone was. Some pretty good names were picked right after him that Bill Armstrong and the Coyotes should have picked instead. Matthew Knies is a name. Stankoven on Dallas, who's leading the American Hockey League in scoring. Two names who were picked immediately after Fedotov, and Fedotov has not been performing well in Russia. He's there for like 3 or 4 more years as well. He's not going to be coming before Simashev and Boot, even though he was drafted way before them. So maybe it seems like a wasted second-round draft pick. Not a lot of good things to say about Fedotov. Just hopefully things work out and he comes over to North America sooner rather than later, and he's in the Coyote system and they got hands and eyes on him. You could only hope for that. Then we go to Sweden and Finland. We got Nord, 8 points in 20 games played. Thielen, another goalie we just drafted, 2-2-0, a 913 save percentage, and a 275 goals against average. And then Finland, we got Samubo, who's got 1 point in 27 games played. He plays on that same Finland team that Michelli played for, Välimäki played for, even for a brief stint. Hayden played for that team during COVID. So I guess the Coyotes have ties with that team, along with Ratu. He also played for that team in Finland. So we've got some good players out of that team. So we'll see Bo. He'll probably be there for another couple seasons, and maybe like Michelli, he comes over when he's a little bit older. And Korhonen, a previous goalie that we drafted, he's 6-5-1. He's got a 906 save percentage and a 211 goals against average. He played a couple games for the Roadrunners 2 seasons ago. He was loaned to the Roadrunners for 8 games. Maybe we see the same situation this season due to the fact that it's just Vialta there in Tucson. Thornton is injured, and they're relying on a guy who Elite Prospects says is retired in Dylan Wells. So that's pretty much it. Well, that is it for all these existing prospects. If you're a Coyotes fan, who should be rare, and maybe you're kind of down in the dumps about the Coyotes' future, maybe you're underwhelmed about how Cooley's performing, maybe you don't see him as that true number 1 center you were hoping for, maybe you look at this board and none of these guys move the needle for you, and maybe we're exiting the rebuild a bit too quickly. I'm sure some fans think that. Maybe they're rare. I would say they were rare. It's not a common thing to think about the Coyotes. But you shouldn't fret, because even though they have all these prospects, not to mention that whole video I had on the Roadrunners, some of those are great prospects as well, including Gunther, they still have draft picks. They still have about 34 draft picks in the next 3 seasons, 3 drafts. They got 13 picks this upcoming draft, 11 picks the year after, and 10 picks in that 3rd and final year I'm referencing. Along with that, they got 3 second-round picks next draft, 4 second-round picks to draft after that in 2025, and back to 3 second-rounders in 2026. And that includes their first-round picks, which they have 3, and they shouldn't move, and they'll probably keep all 3 of those. So over the next 3 years, we got 10 more second-round draft picks and 3 more first-round draft picks that will add to this board and just beef up our prospect pipeline while the Coyotes themselves on the ice are competing for the playoffs, maybe making the playoffs this season, next season, or the year after. So even if they don't use all those draft picks, you could use them for trade chips. That's 10 second-round picks over the next 3 years. Let's say you need a centerman. Let's say Cooley, Geekie, Hayden, McBain isn't really working as your center core. Use 2 of those second rounders and you could get a really nice, already NHL established centerman. You don't have to use all those picks. So they're just in a really great position right now, which they haven't been in probably forever. So just got to give props to Bill Armstrong for building a strong team already, but it's just going to keep getting stronger. Build player over player, better player over next best player, and it should be all gravy from there. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.